Okay, let me just say right now, before I even get into the full story, that if you think I was wrong for what I did, I honestly don't care. Not one bit. Because what my ex, Mark, did to me wasn't just a breakup. It was a scorched earth campaign that nearly obliterated every single thing I had worked for my entire life. He didn't just break my heart. He tried to break my spirit, my livelihood, my very identity. And after everything, after he laughed in my face when I was at my absolute lowest, after he watched my career crumble because of his deliberate, malicious actions, I promised myself I would get my revenge. And oh, did I. So tell me, would you have just rolled over and let him win? Or would you have fought back with everything you had? Because I fought. And I won. Let's go back to where it all began, though. Before my life turned into a twisted game of corporate espionage and emotional warfare. I met Mark back in college. We were both in the same highly competitive finance program. I was always ambitious, always driven. I saw my future laid out clearly. Hard work, climb the ladder, make a name for myself. Mark seemed to share that same drive, at least on the surface. He was charming, intelligent, and incredibly persuasive. We started dating in our junior year, and for a long time, it felt like we were an unstoppable team. We pushed each other, studied together, dreamed about our future careers. We pictured ourselves in corner offices, making big deals, living this incredible, successful life side by side. After graduation, we both landed incredible entry-level positions at the same prestigious investment bank. It was a dream come true. We were in New York City, working long hours, but we had each other. We'd grab late-night dinners, commiserate about demanding bosses, and celebrate every small victory. Our careers began to take off. I specialized in mergers and acquisitions, and I was good at it. Really good. I had a knack for sniffing out undervalued companies, structuring complex deals, and bringing them to fruition. My reputation grew rapidly within the firm. I was often pulled onto high-profile projects, frequently working directly with senior partners. Mark, however, struggled a bit more. He was in a different division, more focused on portfolio management, and while he was competent, he didn't have the same meteoric rise I did. He'd often joke about it, saying I was the star and he was just supporting cast. I never saw it that way. I genuinely believed we were a partnership, and I always tried to lift him up, sharing my insights, even advocating for him when I could. I thought we were a team, that my success was our success. Boy, was I naive. Our relationship outside of work started to show cracks, subtle at first. He became increasingly critical of my long hours, even though he also worked demanding shifts. He'd make passive-aggressive comments about my dedication, or how I prioritized work over him. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the stress of our jobs, or perhaps a little insecurity. I tried harder to balance things, to make time for him, to reassure him. We even moved in together into a beautiful apartment in the city, which I mostly paid for, since my bonus checks were significantly larger. I was happy to do it. I loved him. Or at least, I thought I did. The turning point, looking back, was when I was offered a promotion to vice president, a full 2 years ahead of the typical schedule. It was a huge deal, a testament to my hard work and the success I'd brought to the firm. I was ecstatic. I remember calling Mark immediately, practically shouting the news, expecting him to be thrilled for me. Instead, there was a pause. A silence that felt too long. Then a lukewarm, "That's great, babe." No enthusiasm, no genuine joy. Later that night, he picked a fight about something trivial, and I realized then that my success wasn't making him happy. It was making him resentful. This resentment festered. Our arguments became more frequent, more intense. He'd accuse me of being a workaholic, of changing, of not caring about him, all while I was breaking my back, trying to build a future for both of us. One particularly nasty argument culminated in him screaming that I thought I was better than him and that I was too big for my britches. That night, something shifted in me. I started seeing him differently. The charm had worn thin, revealing a deeply insecure, envious man. I began to realize that he wasn't my partner. He was my competition. Still, I was blinded by years of history, by the idea of what we could be. I kept trying to fix things, to smooth things over, to appease him. Big mistake. My biggest project at the time, the one that truly solidified my reputation and was going to be my stepping stone to an even higher position, involved a massive acquisition of a rival tech company. This deal was incredibly complex, highly sensitive, and required absolute secrecy. I was leading the team, and it consumed every waking moment. Because we lived together, Mark knew all about it. He knew the long hours I was putting in, he saw the late-night calls, he even overheard bits and pieces of my conversations when I was working from home. I was foolish enough to confide in him, to share my anxieties, my triumphs, my frustrations. I told him details I shouldn't have, believing he was my confidant, my safe space. I talked about specific challenges, key players, even some of the financial projections. I trusted him implicitly. And then he blindsided me. One morning I walked into the office and the atmosphere was different. Tense. My boss called me into his office, his face grim. He started asking me about certain strategic leaks, information that only a handful of people knew, information that had somehow made its way to the rival company, jeopardizing the entire acquisition. My stomach dropped. I denied everything, of course. I was a professional. I knew the stakes. But the evidence they had was specific, damning, and pointed directly to my team, and more specifically, to information that only I would have had access to or detailed knowledge of. My career, the one I had built brick by painstaking brick, was suddenly teetering on the edge of a cliff. I was put on immediate administrative leave, an internal investigation was launched, and the acquisition hung in the balance. I went home in a daze, trying to piece together how this could have happened. Who would do this? Who had access? The only person who knew nearly as much as I did, who had heard all my frustrations, all my confidential calls, was Mark. It was a horrifying realization. I confronted him that night, my voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and rage. He initially played innocent, acting shocked and concerned. But I pressed him, detailing the specific information that had been leaked, information he only could have known because I told him. His composure cracked. He started to stammer, his eyes darting away. And then he confessed. Not with remorse, but with a sneer. He admitted he had been deliberately feeding information to a contact at the rival firm. He claimed he did it because he was sick of living in my shadow, that he wanted to see me taken down a peg, to see me fail for once. He even said he thought it would give him a chance to shine, to step up and prove his worth by saving the situation, or by eventually getting a job at the rival company using the insider info he provided. He laughed, a cold, cruel sound, as he told me that my career was over, that I was finished. My entire world imploded. The man I loved, the man I shared my life with, had systematically sabotaged me. Not for personal gain in the traditional sense, but out of pure, unadulterated envy and malice. I was devastated. The firm eventually concluded I was the source of the leak, even though I maintained my innocence. The evidence against me was circumstantial but strong enough to imply negligence, at the very least. The acquisition, miraculously, still went through, but at a higher cost and with significant delays. I was fired, blacklisted. My reputation in the industry was in tatters. Headhunters stopped calling. My colleagues wouldn't return my messages. My name was mud. I lost everything. My job, my apartment, because I couldn't afford it alone anymore, and the man I thought was my partner. I moved back in with my parents, utterly broken. So that's the situation I was in. Homeless, jobless, heartbroken, and completely discredited. And I had to make a choice. Do I just let him get away with it? Do I just slink away, defeated, and try to start over from scratch, knowing he was walking around, feeling triumphant, having destroyed my life? Or do I fight back? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go? Or would you have sought your revenge? What's your immediate gut reaction to this kind of betrayal? I spent weeks in a fog of despair, but beneath it, a cold, hard ember of fury began to glow. I wasn't just angry. I was incandescent with rage. Mark thought he had won. He thought he had ended me. But he underestimated me. He didn't realize that the fire he lit in me wasn't destructive. It was transformative. I started to plot. Carefully, meticulously. I knew I couldn't go to the authorities. Without concrete proof that would stand up in court, it would just be my word against his, and I was already tainted goods. I had to be smarter. I had to use his own arrogance against him. I remembered everything he had told me about his contact at the rival firm, the casual bragging, the smug details. He was so confident, so sure he was untouchable. My first step was subtle. I started digging, quietly, through old emails, archived chats, anything I still had access to from our shared digital life. I was looking for patterns, for any mention of his contact, any casual slip-up. It was tedious, painstaking work, and often discouraging. But then I found it, a series of encrypted messages on an old, rarely used chat app that I'd forgotten we even had. He must have thought it was secure, or just forgot to delete them. They were conversations between him and his contact, detailing specific information about my deals, the exact same information that had been leaked. The dates matched perfectly with the timing of the leaks. It was all there in black and white, his malicious plot laid bare. But it wasn't enough. It was still just digital evidence, easily dismissed as doctored by a disgruntled ex. I needed more. I needed a confession. A public one. I reached out to an old college friend, David, who was a brilliant freelance journalist with a reputation for breaking big stories. I told him everything, omitting the details about my plan for revenge, just focusing on Mark's betrayal and the injustice of my dismissal. David was sympathetic but skeptical, wanting tangible proof. I showed him the chat logs, explaining their significance. He agreed that it looked damning but still needed more. That's when my true plan began to unfold. I knew Mark was incredibly proud of himself, full of hubris. He was still at the bank, probably basking in my absence, feeling like the king of a hill. I also knew he was incredibly image-conscious. I set up a fake online profile, using a pseudonym and a fabricated story, pretending to be a young, ambitious junior analyst who admired his bold moves and wanted his mentorship. I approached him through a seemingly innocuous professional networking site. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He loved the attention, loved the flattery. I cultivated the persona over several weeks, slowly drawing him out. I told him I was struggling with a tough project, that I wished I had someone smart and cunning like him to guide me. I asked hypothetical questions, hinting at similar ethical dilemmas. He began to brag, dropping hints about his strategies for getting ahead. I then suggested we meet for coffee to discuss my career path further. He readily agreed, eager to bask in more admiration. I arranged the meeting at a quiet cafe, one I knew had good surveillance cameras, strategically positioning myself so that the camera would capture both of us clearly. I also had David, my journalist friend, hidden at a nearby table, discreetly recording our conversation on his phone. When Mark arrived, he was his usual charming, condescending self. After some initial small talk, I, as my persona, started to steer the conversation, lamenting about how difficult it was to get ahead, how some people had to resort to extreme measures. That's when he started to monologue. He talked about making sacrifices, about eliminating competition, about how you sometimes have to burn bridges to build your own empire. He was practically preening. I gently prodded him, using phrases that mirrored the language in his leaked chats, asking how one would really manage to take down a rival without getting caught. And that's when he, in a moment of spectacular arrogance, decided to mentor me by explicitly detailing how he orchestrated my downfall. He laid out the entire plan, how he copied confidential files, how he fed them to his contact at the rival firm, how he covered his tracks, and how he enjoyed watching me get fired. He even mimicked the look on my face when I was confronted by my boss. He laughed again, that same cruel laugh, believing he was sharing a brilliant secret with an adoring protege. He thought he was untouchable. What he didn't know was that every word was being recorded, his confession captured both audibly and visually. The revenge was sweet, so incredibly sweet. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Mark. David had a field day. He broke the story, not just on his freelance blog, but also managed to get it picked up by a major financial news outlet. The chat logs, the audio recording, the visual confirmation from the cafe's security footage, which David managed to obtain through a contact, all painted an undeniable picture. Mark was arrested and charged with corporate espionage and fraud. The bank, thoroughly embarrassed, issued a public apology to me and immediately began a full damage control operation, offering me a substantial settlement and even hinting at reinstatement. I refused the reinstatement, not because I didn't love the work, but because I wanted a clean slate, far away from the toxic environment Mark had created. I used the settlement to start my own boutique consulting firm, leveraging my original reputation and the new, very public vindication. My name was cleared, my reputation not only restored, but enhanced. I was no longer the disgraced former VP. I was the wrong genius who fought back and won. Mark, on the other hand, lost everything. His job, his reputation, his freedom. He faced severe penalties, including a lengthy prison sentence, and was effectively blacklisted from the financial industry for life. Justice, in my eyes, was served. So, that's my story. It's a harsh reminder that sometimes the people closest to you can be your greatest adversaries, and that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. But it's also a testament to resilience, to fighting for what's right, and to the power of unwavering determination when everything seems lost. I rebuilt my life, stronger and wiser, knowing that I faced the absolute worst and came out on top. If you've ever been truly betrayed, truly wronged, then I hope my story resonates with you. Like this video if you were on my side, and believe I did what anyone in my situation would have done. Subscribe for more stories like this, where I dive deep into the kind of real-life dramas that sometimes feel stranger than fiction. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to know what you think. I'll see you all in the next story.